While we might not have Bedlam football on a regular basis, hopefully we can have some Bedlam spring variety mixed in here. But what we do have right now is a massive in-state Bedlam battle when it comes to recruiting.
You are Locked On Oklahoma State, your daily podcast on the Oklahoma State Cowboys, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Howdy, y'all, and hello, all. Welcome back to Locked On Oklahoma State, your daily stop for all things Cowboy and Cowgirl related. My name is Cody Stovall. I want to thank you kindly for stopping by to make this your first listen. We're available on all of your podcasting platforms, visually as well on YouTube. Find me personally on X at Aldeo State. Today, we're brought to you by FanDuel. Make every moment matter more, especially right now when new customers can get squared away today with $250 back in bonus bets when your first $5 hauler is a winner. Get with FanDuel.com today to get squared away with your monetary value. We are going to shift into the gears of recruiting, especially the in-state variety, but we're going to have a guest come on here because who wants to hear me talk all the time? Ladies and gentlemen, from Boomercast Productions, brother, how are you feeling? And how is this in-state feel kind of upticking for you in the recruiting?
Well, first off, I got to let out a boomer sooner, baby.
That's a curse word. I don't typically curse on the show, but all right, we'll let it fly.
Man, in-state recruiting is it's really weird right now because like 5-6 weeks ago, OU was like super trending upwards, and OSU was just kind of hanging out at the bottom, and
right.
OSU went and got the number one quarterback in Texas, and then they picked up Caden Jones, and man, there's just big names on campus every single day. It seems like coming to visit, and Mike Gundy got that second wind about him. It's dangerous.
There's definitely something brewing in Stillwater, and obviously our connection was kind of grown through the Katie Batman Jones, right? We were kind of sharing somewhat similar stories of things that we were hearing in the background, and we still have much more to go, right? The Cowboys recently has been able to bring in another Owasso individual and Carter Langendorfer. Then we were able to get Aiden Wilson from Berry Hill. Now you're talking about the conversation heating up even more because there's the Taj Overton effect, who obviously has been an OU lean for quite some time. He's one of the biggest heavy hitters in the country when it comes to recruiting, so everybody's after him. But I think that there's a little bit of talk about Oklahoma State at least gaining some ground in Taj Overton. Now, does that mean we're going to garner his services? Maybe not. If you look back to last year, C.J. Nixon, when we went from outside his top 15 to legitimately in his top 3 before we decided to commit to OU. That could be a likely scenario once again out of Taj Overton, but there's so many more, right? You could talk about Mason James, the wide receiver that could become an OU guy, but he's obviously being sought after all across the country as well. And then I think you could talk about Jalen Battle coming over from Edmond Santa Fe. Oklahoma State did have a Santa Fe pipeline for quite some time, but you guys were able to steal Trace Ford from us, so maybe there's another battle mixed in here. DeJon Gaines is a big name, but the Cowboys picked up Trey McLaughlin out of Bixby. I think that's a massive addition to this class. What are you hearing in regards to Taj Overton and some of the things that I've been spewing here for a second?
Well, I'll tell you, the biggest thing that I've been hearing is Oklahoma State, they're not scared anymore. I'm going to say scared, but like they're more confident because in years past, they're like, well, we can't get that guy. So we're not even going to go after that guy.
Yep.
But now with the NIL and especially in the two guys they brought in on staff this year, man, huge. That's the biggest thing right now between Oklahoma State and everybody else is the confidence that they're showing, the confidence that they're showing in their players that they're trying to recruit. And also they're actually giving the recruits a vision as to see like where they're going to do, like what they're going to do, how they're going to fit into the system. OU, on the other hand, it seems like they're getting stuck on who they are. Okay. We can get this guy because we're OU, but it's not like that anymore. It's a whole new ballgame.
Well, I'm actually really glad that you brought that up because I think that there is a point to be driven home right now. It's very early in the recruiting process, but before the airing of the show, I think OU was ranked number 38 in recruiting by 247. The Cowboys are like number 29, if I recall correctly. So
Right.
it's not very often that the Cowboys jump ahead of the Sooners in recruiting. And I'm not sitting here saying that that's how it's going to end up. Again, we're talking about the guys like Mason James and Taj Overton that are going to make a massive differentiation. I know you got the Mustang quarterback that is obviously a very big deal. But at the same time, I think you hit the nail on the head. Oklahoma State was reluctant to recruit some of the heavy hitters in the past, especially in the state of Oklahoma, right? We can call a spade a spade. The Taj Overtons of the past, we really didn't go after because there was an assumption that if they were going to end up at a Bama or an OU or a Texas, it was kind of not really worth our time. So we focused on some of the more under-recruited guys. And historically speaking, I know you've been a diehard Sooner fan forever and a day. One of the things that used to irritate me as a Cowboy fan is we would go through the recruiting process, right? And we would unearth the 2-star, 3-star gems. And then the day before National Signing Day, OU would offer, and they would end up as a Sooner. And some of the former Oklahoma coaches would talk about how, kind of tongue-in-cheek, we would let Oklahoma State do the evaluation process, and then if we felt like it made sense, we would swoop in late and get them.
Yeah.
What you're saying, I think, has some merit. Those days are changing, not only because of NIL, the transfer market, but I also think that there is some conversational piece to the fact that you guys are in the SEC and we're in the Big 12. We'll talk about a little bit more of that in segment 2. But other than the reluctancy factor and why we got Katie Batman Jones is instead of just simply rolling out the target, right, you do have to make somebody a priority, and Caden's family felt that. But we were also able to diagram, this is what we see you doing at Oklahoma State. This is how the offense is going to look in 2025 and moving forward. And this is precisely how we see you fitting in it. That is one of the biggest things that I think was able to land the services of Katie Jones. And now Katie Jones is out there being the head recruiter for Oklahoma State. And again, like we brought in Carter from Owasso, you brought in Trey from Bixby, and now you're having the Taj Overton conversation heat up because of guys like Katie Batman Jones putting in their ear, there's something special happening in Stillwater. Before we kind of shift gears here to segment 2, what else do you think is on the horizons for Oklahoma State from the news that you've been hearing in the background?
I mean, I just at Oklahoma State, they're ready. I guess their defense is a little bit behind the offense.
A little bit, yep.
Just because on the offensive side, they've ran that system before. So with Meacham or whatever.
The terminology, we've used portions of it before, yeah. But the defense, it's all brand new.
Yep.
And it's all NFL based. And I think that's another big thing is I hate giving kudos to the SEC, but the SEC has been following the NFL model for at least a few years. So when you get an exorbitant number of coaches from the SEC that also have a little bit of an NFL pedigree, that typically is saved for the Oregons, the OUs, the Bamas, and the Texases of the world. For Oklahoma State to be operating on that level, it is entirely new, and it is allowing the staff to sales pitch something that has never happened before in Stillwater, Oklahoma.
Yep, very, very true, man. It's all like your coaching staff plays a huge part on who's gonna, like, if a recruit even wants to look at you, talk to you, anything. And Oklahoma State, they're doing it. I mean, there's no way around it. It's just simply they're doing it.
Well, speaking of sales pitches, we're going to talk a little bit about the discrepancy between the sales pitch happening in Stillwater as opposed to the sales pitches happening in Norman, Oklahoma. But before we do that, I do have to remind the fine folks out here that you need to capitalize on your monetary situation as often as possible. And you know that's going to happen with FanDuel. FanDuel is the bee's knees for all of your betting needs. The NBA playoff action is almost upon us. It's right here. The FanDuel is giving new customers an incredible way to get in on the action. Right now, when new FanDuel customers join up, they can place a $5 bet and get $250 back in bonus bets if your first $5 hauler is a winner. I personally love how FanDuel makes betting so simplistic, whether it's picking your favorite team or diving into the deep player props. From three-pointers, steals, assists, FanDuel has so many ways for you to bet on your favorite player props. Plus, the after the game tip off celebrations come better when you have the monetary value in your bank account. You can get paid very quickly with FanDuel, and you can even combine live prop bets and same game parlays for the biggest chances for you to win. Do not miss out on your opportunity to capitalize with FanDuel.com today. Go to FanDuel.com today to claim your 250 bones back in bonus bets. Make a $5 winner happen. Get your 250 bones back in bonus bets with FanDuel. Go to FanDuel.com today to get squared away. All right, buddy. So the sales pitch between Norman and Stillwater, obviously, it's a little bit different than previous years. And I mentioned the conference being part of it. I'm not sitting here saying the Big 12's on the SEC's level, okay? Not doing that. But what I am saying is OU's schedule does not do you any favors, right? Whenever you guys came to the conference, they seemingly gave Texas a massive gift in the scheduling department, and they gave you guys the absolute shaft, which means you still have to carry that shaft from last season into this season. So the idea of Oklahoma getting to 8, 9, 10 wins, it should be a plausible scenario. But when you look at the schedule, it looks really difficult. And in this day and age, right, you mentioned the transfer portal, the NIL era, it's about having the most visibility. Marketability equals profitability. And part of that is playing the most amount of games. Is a 3-9 season going to help Oklahoma State? Absolutely flipping not. But what could help Oklahoma State is getting back in the conversation of the Big 12 title race. If you're in the conversation of the Big 12 title race, you're likely in a CFP scenario. OU would have to chop down some of the biggest heavy hitters in college football to even have that same conversation. So do you think there might be some viability in that topic that a player could come to Oklahoma State, be on a more national stage because they could potentially play more games than going to OU? Or do you think it's something completely different?
No, I agree with you. I totally agree with you. Especially these student athletes today, they're all about exposure, man. The more exposure you get, the more film you have, the more possibilities there is after college. Like you were saying about OU and the SEC schedule, boy, that's a tough run. It is.
Yeah, bro.
If they can come out of this season 9-3, I'd be super, super, super happy. Unfortunately, I think they're going to go 7-6, 7-5. That's what I'm seeing. As far as the selling points, OU has the SEC on their side. They play night games. They get more notice. Like nobody wants to get up at 11 a.m. to watch a football game. But there again, I think the Big 12 is on the same stage as the SEC. I really do.
Okay.
So you take the top 5 teams from the Big 12, they're going to match up really good with the top 5 teams from the SEC. I truly believe that. The only difference is the lower part of the Big 12, not so much as the lower part of the SEC, but there again, like who says that Kansas can't beat Vanderbilt? You know what I mean? Like 8 times out of 10, I'm taking Kansas over Vandy.
Right.
They're doing a lot of big things there in Kansas, but I miss the Big 12. I wish we would have stayed in the Big 12.
Well, see, I'm glad you mentioned that. I think that was going to be my next question is, do OU fans still enjoy being in the SEC? Now, and I'm not sitting here saying that it's because OU is going to miss winning the Big 12 every single year. Yada. I think the NIL and transfer market has kind of shifted some of that regardless. But if we were to have it all over to do again, do you think OU fans would have jumped to the SEC, or do you think it would maybe make more sense to stay in the Big 12?
I think a majority of the OU fan base are spoiled.
Okay.
Extremely spoiled. So when they don't win, they cry. It's always somebody else's fault why we lost. They can't just take it. Like there's gonna be some times where we ain't on top.
Right.
It's been that way for years, man. But they just have to accept it. And I think probably 50-50 as far as wishing they didn't go to the SEC versus glad they did.
Okay.
I'm sure it probably builds a better brand, but I'm not sure if you can build it much bigger than it already is at OU. I
completely agree. And I do think that there's some parity in the Big 12 that makes it very entertaining to watch. But as you had kind of mentioned, I think that Arizona State beating Texas would have changed the conversation a little bit in regards to the Big 12 approaching the SEC. At the end of the day, it's about winning, right? And the Big 12 has to do something to change that narrative. But as it pertains to both OU and Oklahoma State, when it comes to recruiting, right? You mentioned some of the sales pitch being the historical traditions of OU and maybe perhaps leaning on that a little bit too much. Oklahoma State used to be able to recruit on the fact that we had coaches for 15, 17, 19, 20 years. That is gone. Every single coach is literally brand new other than, Coach John Snyder, but he was only here for a year. So that makes some sense. Is there a little bit of trepidation in regards to recruiting for the future of OU, aka is Brent Venables the answer? And do recruits feel like Brent Venables and this staff is going to be the answer for the foreseeable future? Or do you think perhaps there is a little bit of maybe trepidation in regards to recruits jumping on the OU bandwagon because they're not sure if Brent Venables and that staff is going to be the answer moving forward?
100% correct, my man. Because Brent Venables, hell of a recruiter, hell of a man, hell of a developer, just a great, great, great guy. Defensive coordinator, probably the best defensive coordinator in the nation. But when it comes to the head coach, there's so many duties that come with that, like delegating. This guy can play this position, this guy can't play that position, but he can play this one. It's like he just reminds me of John Blake a lot from the mid-'90s with OU.
OU fans don't like that name.
We
love John Blake.
I'm sure you guys did. But that guy had he had a ton of NFL talent. I mean, there's a lot of dudes that went to the league that played under Blake, but he just didn't know how to head coach, and that's what the recruits are thinking. To me personally, I don't know what OU's future looks like. I don't know where they're heading. It's going to take this season to see what Brent does, because he's running defense now. Yeah, this is the first year he's actually going to do the defensive play calling duties. But there have been a few recruits that the Sperry kid decommitted, went to Florida State. Then we got Jaden, I think it's Neil O'Neill or something like that. I can't remember.
Oh, the quarterback. Yes.
Yeah.
O'Neill. Correct.
Yeah. He just took 2 visits. He got one going to Georgia and one to Florida State. So that's, I don't know. It's really in the air. And talking with Caden Jones, he was telling me that OSU just cared more. Like they didn't treat him like a third option type back. So.
Well, unfortunately, we have done that with Tatum Deuce Bell, but that's a different conversation for a different day. And I do think that the new staff is going to have some ability to kind of get back into the Tatum Bell sweepstakes. But do you think there's any merit to the potential conversation that how the seasons go for Gavin Freeman and Caleb Hicks and Kendall Daniels could be factored into this becoming I don't like the idea of people leaving Bedlam schools to go to the other Bedlam school. I don't like it, right? But at the same time, Kelly Maxwell is one that we will never live down. Even though we did win the Bedlam softball series last year, you did with Kelly Maxwell win a national title. So at the end of the day, I don't know who won in that ordeal.
Right.
But Trace Ford, I don't know that he saw all of his potential, not even at OU, but he didn't see his full potential at Oklahoma State because of so many injuries. And whenever you're talking about the dynamic between the Bedlam transfers, you have Kendall Daniels at OU now, and you have Gavin Freeman and Caleb Hicks in Stillwater. The reports thus far are Caleb Hicks is absolutely on fire this spring, and he's going to have the ability to compete for running back 1, running back 2 level carries very, very quickly. And I think likewise for Gavin Freeman. He was kind of a gadget guy at OU. He had some massive moments at OU, but with Brennan Presley now being gone, he likely is going to factor a much bigger role into the season. Do you think there's any merit to the conversation that if Gavin Freeman has a massive year, if Caleb Hicks rushes for 800-900 yards, and Kendall Daniels doesn't have a great season at Oklahoma, do you think that there could be more of this Bedlam switch up?
Oh, most definitely. Especially even more now that they don't play each other every year. Like you can actually leave and not have to worry about playing against your buddies. I think Caleb Hicks is going to have a really, really, really big year this year. Super physical runner. Vision like crazy. He's just a really, really good back. Gavin Freeman, that dude's special when it comes to returning punts, man. He's got some nice little moves on him. And as far as the merit, I guess it would just depend on the success. Like you said, if Kendall Daniels doesn't do anything, it's hard for me to see anybody wanting to go there from OSU. And I mean, if he's not improving any.
Right. Well, and I think likewise, it could go the other way. If Gavin Freeman doesn't end up playing, but 15 snaps all season, and Caleb Hicks ends up being RB3 or RB4, and Kendall Daniels goes out and provides the NFL level that he physically exudes, right? In all the conversations with OU people throughout the course of the spring, one thing that pops up is he's got the NFL prototypical body, size, speed. Yes, and that is precisely what we saw in Stillwater. And I don't think anybody in Stillwater has any ill will towards Kendall Daniels. I think most of us understand that if he finds that passion, the drive, the love of football in Norman, he can be a top 3-4 round dude. He's just got all of the ability. It's going to be kind of interesting to see if OU can pull it out of him, because clearly Oklahoma State this previous year, we did not get the most out of Kendall Daniels. Okay?
Oh, yeah.
We absolutely did not. Sometimes a change of scenery is really all you need. Yep. So I think it will be a good conversation for you and I to have at this time, maybe even next year, because if Hicks and Freeman have a big year, or if Kendall has a big year, I think it could change some of the dynamics between the in-state Bedlam transfer rivalries. Before we shift gears here a little bit more to the 7-on-7 and how you and I kind of had a recruiting connection, what are your thoughts on the Bedlam spring game? I think that the Bedlam football game should be a yearly thing at some point in time. I understand that Mike Gundy's had some reluctancy, but we also do have some scheduling constraints. If we can't get the real game, I'm a massive fan of this spring game. What are your thoughts, and what do you think OU country's kind of feeling about it?
That'd be cool, man. That'd be really cool to keep it going in the spring. And like Mike said, what are they gonna do if we pull up? Like, who's gonna stop us?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, man. I think it'd be great.
NCAA has no teeth. I don't even understand why Dion in Colorado gave them the satisfaction of asking. I mean, you knew what the answer was going to be. But I will admit, right, so we talked about a little bit of a discrepancy between the SEC and the Big 12. Let's call a spade a spade. If Georgia or Tennessee or Bama decided they were going to go play Chattanooga for a spring game, the NCAA wouldn't have said not a nothing about it. They'd have said, you know what, that's a really good idea. Yep. That is one thing that I do hate about the Big 12, or I hate that the Big 12 gets hate on, is because Brett Yormark's been a visionary in a multitude of things, like the media days. And if you notice, the SEC, they followed their media day shift to Dallas to kind of, get in on that. The halftime shows for the conference championship games, that was all started by Brett Yormark and the Big 12. The QR codes, the different third-party entities that could be partners in the conference, all of that stuff the Big 12 has laughed at for. And now all the other conferences are doing it and nobody's talking about it.
Yeah.
Goodness gracious me. All right, so we do need to shift gears here once again and talk a little bit more about the recruiting aspect, because I didn't respect your gangster at first. I did the research. Now I do respect your gangster, but I want to kind of dive into that a little bit more here in a second.
Cool, man.
All right, so the Caden Katie Batman Jones scenario popped up. And you and I have had previous conversations, dialogue, nothing major, but you sent me a message asking me what I was hearing about KD. I text you what I thought I was hearing from some of his people. And then you were even closer to the situation. And I was like, how does this dude know all this stuff? And then I did some more digging. And you do have a significant number of connections, not to mention you also kind of do some of the work with the same company I do some work with in Prospect Sports. What is, in your opinion, the difference between Prospect Sports and everybody else? And why are they climbing higher and higher and higher? They're getting much more attention, much more media coverage. Why do you think that is in a world that's permeated with a bunch of 7-on-7?
Prospect sets themselves apart because they have great coaches. They do more than 7-on-7. They do one-on-one events. They do team events. They go all over the country. It's not just one state. And plus they always have college recruiters at the 7-on-7 events. Just to get names or offers, or I mean, just this last tournament they had, a kid got offered. So I mean, that's right there, and there's the coaches they have, man.
It's impressive.
Obsolete.
Well, and the fact that they bring some of the biggest names. So I'll tell you a fun story. My first ever 7-on-7 event that I covered, Adrian Peterson rolled up to the booth. Right, I'm not an OU fan, but I recognize real, right? Yeah. Gangster recognizes that he was, in my opinion, the best running back I've seen, not in Oklahoma State jersey, since Barry Sanders. I thought Adrian Peterson was that good. So even though I'm rocking a bunch of Oklahoma State stuff, I had, the fan moments of how cool it was to see Adrian. And they bring in a lot of the NFL's heavy hitters. Mr. Alexander stopped through, and he does a lot of amazing stuff with 7-on-7 as well. But I'll tell you, one of the biggest things that I love about Prospect Sports is, you mentioned it, they do the one-on-one stuff, they do the lineman camps, they do the combines, but they teach parents and families about the recruiting process, to look for. And they're honest about, I've heard this about X, Y, and Z coaches. I've heard this about, X, Y, and Z university. So instead of just the integral pieces of on-field play, they go beyond that. And they help parents and families understand the lay of the land when it comes to recruiting, and who you should talk to, how you should have these conversations, what you should do with your film. And I'm very appreciative. And I'm obviously understanding that their connection is continuing to grow, because again, I did not understand how you were acquiring the information you were. And then I obviously did the digging, and I was like, oh, okay. He knows a lot more people than I do. Man. I'm greatly appreciative that you and I have had conversations. We've had a connection. I think it's absolutely phenomenal that we do get to do some work for some of the same companies, especially in different states, right? I do some stuff in Oklahoma, Texas. They're all over Georgia, Florida, California. Yep. They even come up to Colorado. I'm amazed with the growth of Prospect Sports 7-on-7. And clearly, they've got their feelers out to an exorbitant number of people. Oh, yeah. And lastly, before we let you skedaddle on off of here, how did you get in so good with all of these recruiting connections and coaches in the state of Oklahoma at the high school level, and the trainers and 7-on-7 stuff? How did you kind of, naturally grow into this market, if you don't mind my asking?
Throw myself out there, bud. You just gotta you just gotta trust and just go off your name, man. And I built like a kind of a name for myself, and I just stayed after him and after him and after him, just message them all the time, over and over and over. And finally, they're like, "What? What do you want?"
Who are you asking about?
From there, it just takes off, man. You just got to be kind of like bully your way in there almost.
Well, I mean, I kind of get it, right? This whole job, I'm not going to sit here and pretend that I'm a top-notch professional. I don't know what I'm doing. I'm just a dude that loves film, that gets to talk to some pretty cool people on the inside, and they pay me money to yell in front of a microphone. Now, I will admit, right, so we talked a little bit about Caleb Hicks. He was just on with OSU Max. I think that more fans from the state of Oklahoma, of both schools, should check out some of that stuff. Now, that was kind of my lane in the beginning, right? I was the guy that had all the players on. But I'm very happy that Oklahoma State is now officially doing that more often, and you're getting more access, because I think that is imperative. We talk about recruiting. If you're going to get a bigger fan base and you're going to get more access to recruits, you have to give the fans access to the players, right? And you know this. Being between OU and OSU, Oklahoma State has been one of the worst about keeping everything in a little bitty bubble. We don't want people knowing who we're recruiting. We don't want people knowing who's on campus. We don't want people knowing who's excelling. And I think that has been something that has kind of stuffed us in, I don't want to say a box of irrelevancy, but we haven't grown our fan base in forever and a day. And now we're finally starting to do some things that are conducive to recruiting and NIL and the transfer portal era. What do you think is last thing before we get off here? What do you think is going to end up happening at the end of the season? Right now, OSU's like 29th at 247 in recruiting. OU's 38th. I think we have 5 commits. You have 4. So there's a numerical advantage as well. But do you think at the end of the year, Oklahoma State will stay ahead of OU in the recruiting number?
If they don't, it's going to be super close. I see both of them finishing with a top 15 class. I'll tell you that much.
Okay.
I definitely
That would
see.
be huge.
I could see that.
I think our biggest class all time was 27th. 27.
Oh, yeah.
We've only had like 2, maybe 3 top 30 classes of all time.
Really?
Yeah. But
Wow.
you mentioned earlier, like we would purposely exclude ourselves from recruiting individuals that we thought were, too much for us to get.
Yep.
And I will say, do you think that the GM kind of role is going to be something that benefits OU? Because Oklahoma State doesn't have a true GM. We have Mike Gundy doing more of that, right? Taking the private helicopters to recruiting, shaking hands, kissing babies. Kenyatta Wright fulfills that role. But you guys actually do have a certified bona fide GM getting paid as a GM on staff. Do you think that could be something that helps with the – I don't know what's the right word. Anybody who has any reluctancy about OU staff, do you think that GM could kind of slide in and help Brent Venables with some of that?
I believe so, especially with Nagy. Man, that dude was a winner in New England. He knows what it takes to win on a professional level. That's where we're going with college athletics. It's not going to be long before they're going to have contracts to sign, and I mean I don't see the NCAA being part of football anymore within 10 years. You know, they're going to separate themselves.
I think 10 years is a very generous time frame.
Yeah,
they're a shell of themselves, man.
Yep.
It's absolutely ridiculous that they think
is.
that they can still control stuff. But again, I mean, you still have some level of control because, like Greg Sankey's mentioned, we could do away with the NCAA. He's been talking about this for years.
Yeah.
The only reason it hasn't happened is because with hundreds and hundreds of universities keeping track of everybody's academics and everybody's attendance records, and it does become slightly problematic. So it's kind of like they want the NCAA to do all of that stuff, but not do any of the other stuff. It is going to be interesting to see kind of how things shake out here at the end of the day. Anywho, brother man, I've had an absolute blast. We've been talking about doing this for a little bit. There's obviously going to be much more in-state recruiting that we get to talk about. If we don't get Bedlam football, at least continue giving us Bedlam in recruiting. And lastly, before we skedaddle on off of here, how can the fine folks out here pay attention to what you got rocking and rolling? What is your handle? All of that fun jazz.
You can find me on Twitter, Boomercast Productions, Facebook, Robert Jagger, YouTube, Boomercast Edits. Check out my station. Smash that subscribe button. And I really, really want to thank the AD for letting me on. It was a pleasure, man.
Dude, I had a blast. We'll definitely have to do this more often. And again, I think the decision for Dodge Overton is going to be absolutely massive in regards to this conversation that we're having. But we got to pay attention to Arkansas. I don't like it, especially the fact that Sam Pittman is an Okie. All right.
Yeah,
but again, that's probably why he's landing some of these big Oklahoma guys. Right.
Yeah.
I mean, he was able to swoop in and get one of the top offensive linemen from Owasso this previous season. Getting Colton Yarborough already squared away this year is problematic in my personal opinion.
Yeah.
So maybe next conversation we have, it's about how one of us is not allowing Arkansas to swoop into the state of Oklahoma and get guys anymore.
Heck yeah, for sure.
All right, brother, man. Thank you so much for this. I greatly appreciate your time. We'll definitely have to do this again and keep up on this Bedlam number because there could be a little bit of a seismic shift happening right now. I'm not saying that the Cowboys are going to, overtake the state of Oklahoma, but you guys have owned the state in recruiting for, I don't know, 70 years, 80 years, 100 years.
Yeah, for sure, man.
Right? I mean, we'll have our outliers like a Talon Shetron and Trace Ford and Calvin Bundich here and there, but it does feel like we're gaining much more momentum and steam than we ever have previously. So hopefully we get to have more conversations about this. It'll be exciting to see what some of the top guys do. And until then, ladies and gentlemen, that's all we're going to have for this one right here. As always, you know I love you. God bless. Go Pokes. Thank you for tuning in to make this your first listen here in Locked On Oklahoma State. You could be anywhere. So happy you choose to be here. Do me a favor. Like it if you like the daggone thing. Dislike it if you don't. That's okay too. More importantly, share, comment, and subscribe my podcast. People out there, you're the bricks, the bread, the butter, the fountain, the fondue, the funny stuff, the funky stuff. You're all of it. I appreciate you. Do what you do. Hit the stars. Leave a review. All right, y'all. We out of here. Later.